guys, welcome back to the Wentworth CM Club podcast. This is your host, Chase K. Cook, along with co-hosts Adam and Zach. And today we have two special guests. We have Marie and Doug from Prinoth Tracked Vehicles.
Doug, if you could, we were curious to hear more of a brief history of Prinoth, the kinds of vehicles that you make, and some of the off-road and special applications of them.
Okay. Well, Prinoth is a tracked vehicle specialist. We have three lines of vehicles. Everything is on tracks, some steel tracks, rubber tracks, but everything is on tracks. There's no wheels in our existence anywhere. And Prinoth is the evolution of a couple of companies that started quite a long time ago. A Canadian company, Bombardier, started in the late 1930s, 1939 actually, and an northern Italian company, Prinoth, which started in the early 50s in northern Italy, in Südtirol. They were both working on tracked vehicles of different types for different applications, but they were both traveling a sort of a parallel existence there for a while. And it was really just to make life easier in winter climates, you know, to be able to travel over snow more easily, to be able at one point in time to manipulate snow for skiing applications. And that's how they started. At one point in time, the Canadian company Bombardier got interested in more industrial types applications, not so much working in the snow industry. And so they started to work on an earlier line of vehicles that we have today. And in the early 2000s, Prinoth bought this division of, Bombardier actually had sold it to another Canadian company, Camoplast. And then in 2006, Prinoth started the purchase of the tracked vehicle division from Camoplast at that point in time. And not too long after Prinoth purchased the entire company, which probably ended in 2008, then we went to work to sort of modernize and renovate the lines of vehicles that were in existence, which brings us to what we have today. So our part of the business, the industrial side or the utility side, they're called Panthers. All the vehicles are called Panthers. And we have 7 vehicles in the lineup, and they can do all kinds of things. They can be used for very simple things. We have a little tiny one that plows sidewalks in villages, or cities rather. And we have every size up to a 22-ton payload vehicle that can carry all types of equipment. They can carry dump boxes for moving just sand and gravel and dirt. You can mount them with cranes. You can mount them with digger derricks, hydro vacuums, cement mixers, almost anything that you could possibly think that would go on the back of a truck can be mounted on the new line of vehicles, the Panther vehicles. And the size is dictated by the size of the tool that you need to do.
I already want one. I saw some pictures on Instagram and said, you know, I have no use for that personally, but I would love to have one.
No, same here. I saw the big ones. I was like, I want to hop in one of them. I want to make a slope right now.
But the good thing for city dwellers is you can park them wherever you want. It doesn't matter if there's space or not, you know. So.
The little flashing lights, you know, you can park wherever.
And we now have Prinoth, as I mentioned earlier, there are now 3 divisions. So the snow division is still there, which is grooming machines for alpine ski areas, for cross-country ski areas, for snowmobile trail systems, and just general transport, even to the point where in Western North America, Western Canada, Western US, there are farmers use them to get feed and hay out to their animals out in the fields in the wintertime. So anything that has to do with snow, that line of vehicles can cover pretty much. There's another line of vehicles known as vegetation management, and these are basically land clearing vehicles. So they do prep work for building sites, for roadways, right-of-ways if they're building not a hydroelectric line, but a electric utility line, a pipeline, a gas line. They can do all of this type of preparation. They're basically machines that will walk into a forest and just eat the forest, and they spit it out in wood chips. So it's completely compostable. It'll go back into the ground. You don't really have to do much after those machines have passed and you're ready to start construction. Out of that group also comes a full line of attachments to go on the booms of excavators, on front of skid steers, on agricultural tractors, but all for the same reason, to either clear land or to maintain right-of-ways like along roadways or hydro lines or whatever the case may be. And then there's our division, the utility division, and we work in a multitude of industries. So it can be anything from the oil and gas industry, mining, the electric utility industry, forestry, general construction, road construction, remediation work along rivers and waterways, disaster repair after hurricanes or tornadoes have hit shorelines. All of this type of work can be done. And as I mentioned earlier, the vehicles can be very simple with just a dump box on the back, or they can have any type of equipment, big equipment that would be needed to do mining exploration, to do forestry harvesting, to do carry concrete to pour bases for whatever in the middle of nowhere, to build electric utility lines. So you can put any of that type of equipment on the back of them when you need to go off-road. So that's basically where we came from and what we do today.
That's awesome. It really sounds like you have all the bases covered, really. Anything you need to do, you could do.
No type of land, terrain, territory, none of those are too difficult for those truck vehicles, it sounds like.
Well, that's true. You need to understand that if people can use wheels, they'll use wheels. They're faster, they're cheaper, they're more readily available, and you can get, there's much more choices what you can get in wheels. But when you get to a point where you can no longer go anywhere with a truck, then you need our type of equipment. And so where you need to travel off-road, where the terrain is difficult, either mountainous or swampy, these kind of things, track vehicles are very, very useful, and that's where they shine. And what is becoming more and more important as people are more and more conscious of environment is that if you're working in sensitive areas, track vehicles are the answer, because even the biggest one that you saw, the 22-ton vehicle, when it's fully loaded, it has a ground pressure of around 5.5, 6 pounds per square inch, which for the size of the vehicle and the amount of weight it carries it's a whole lot lighter than any of us when we stand up on the same ground. So that's where these vehicles shine. That's where they really shine, is in those three areas.
So what originally had brought us in and drawn our attention to you guys was the mobile concrete mixer. So could you talk a little bit about the design and its capabilities and stuff like that?
Yeah. Well, the one I'm sure that you are referring to is quite a large one, and it's a project that came about almost 2 years ago now, maybe 1.5 years, 2 years ago. There was a company working on Pikes Peak actually that needed to be getting large amounts of concrete to the top of Pikes Peak. They were building a weather station and an observation station up there, and they needed to get concrete up there, and they were burning the transmissions out of trucks like crazy going up and down the slope. So they thought of track vehicles. We got the request from the company through one of our really good partners, Multi Machine, which is a huge rental house track vehicle specialist. They're based in New Jersey, but they basically cover the entire northeast of the US. So the request came through them. It came into our place. We have an applications department in the engineering, and so they figure out some of these problems, how to mount equipment, how to hook it up to the power packs so it runs properly and so on. So the engineers in that group, they did a lot of work. We contacted McNeilis, which is probably the leader in North America of building cement mixers. And we contacted them to see if they would be interested in working with us on this, and they were. So the two engineering groups went to work to try and figure out how to make this thing fit on the back of the Panther, how to make it run properly, and to solve some of the problems that we knew were going to happen. So that work was done mostly at Prinoth, and then when it came time to actually do the installation, Multi Machine took over again, and they did most of the installation, the tie-in of the cement mixer itself into the power pack of the vehicle. They did some testing, and then they were ready to go. The one that you see the videos of is quite a big cement mixer. It's 9 cubic yards. but as you can appreciate, when you're working on slopes, they were not able to put 9 cubic yards in it because as soon as you start to climb, it starts slopping out the back. Not good for anyone. So they decided that they needed the 9 cubic yard just the same, but they were only ever going to load it with 6 cubic yards, and that worked well. It solved the problem. At one point in time, I believe there was 3 of these units working on that project, and it was such a high visibility project that now there's demand for them all over the place, doing all different types of construction work. And there's the last count, I believe there's another 4 or 5 in production and another 3 or 4 on order as well. So it's an application and a package that was put together that has become extremely popular very quickly. So that big concrete mixture is the one that catches everybody's attention, but there are also a bunch of smaller ones out there that have been used for much smaller projects, much less sexy projects. But they've been running around for a while too, as small as 2 or 3 cubic yards, either concrete mixers or concrete plants. You probably understand the difference there, but concrete plants in a smaller application are much more popular. Usually the travel distances are further, so it's easier to mix the concrete once you get to your work site rather than trying to transport it and keep it soft and liquidy as you're traveling along. So, but it's become a good part of our business and a very visible part of our business as well.
Yeah, in March, I was at Con Expo down in Las Vegas. I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
We were there.
Oh, were you?
That's
too
the last
bad.
time we left home.
Yeah, same here. Obviously, I didn't see your booth there. I really wish at the time I knew, but I saw, they had a couple of these massive concrete plants that were huge.
Yeah.
So I could see how something like that off-road could be very useful when, you don't have enough time. I think normally it's like 90 minutes that you can really have concrete in the truck before you have to pour it. So
exactly.
If you're going to be traveling for more than 2 hours, you need another solution.
And when you're traveling off-road, you're never traveling very fast. You can always just travel as fast as your terrain will allow you to. So yeah, that's where a concrete plant becomes an advantage rather than a mixer that just keeps it moving for a certain period of time before it starts to harden up. So
yeah, and these concrete plants too, I've heard you can make all different types of concrete because it's all computer controlled, and you can control the ingredients and the additives and the admixtures to make all different kinds if you needed to. So that's pretty cool.
That's correct. Yeah. And now the main use for these things now, the Pikes Peak project is pretty much finished to the best of my knowledge. They might have a little bit of work to do this spring once the snow's gone, but that one's more or less done. The contractor that did the first part, he kind of specializes in that type of work. And so he's got a bunch of other projects lined up in hard to reach areas. And that's where the demand is coming from for those. But the other big ones right now, that, as you can well imagine, big electric transmission lines, the big steel towers, they all have concrete bases. So these things are now starting to go onto those jobs because it's easy to get concrete out into very difficult areas, get the bases poured in a fairly quick manner and move on from there. So now that people see the efficiency of these things, they're getting used in more and more types of work as people's imaginations kind of take them there. So
that's awesome to hear. And I just find all this equipment so fascinating. And, like I said, I want one for myself, just to have.
Zach, we might not be able to get you your own, but you would definitely be invited to come and try them once the borders open up again and everything. We would love to have you guys.
Yeah, I think that would be fun if we could arrange for something like that.
Yeah, at the factory, we have quite a large testing ground there. There's hills to climb. There's muddy swamps to go through. There's all kinds of stuff there. So yeah, it's all right there behind the building. So it's easy enough to do.
That would be fun.
That sounds like a fun CM Club group bonding.
Order your passports now so you guys can all come up when everything opens up. It would be super fun.
This question is pertaining to repairs and modifications, and tell us a little bit about this. Do customers often install their own equipment onto the vehicles, or is there some kind of standard mounting system for the main deck so attachments are interchangeable, and what is available as far as electric or hydraulic or air hookups on the vehicles?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, not that long ago, about 10 years ago now, we started to renovate and modernize the line of vehicles. The predecessor to the Panthers was a line of vehicles called Go Tracks or GTs, and they were very popular in their own right, quite good vehicles also, but they were old technology in a lot of ways, not just the diesel technology and the electronics that were in them, but the idea of chassis concept and all of these different things that go into building a vehicle like this was the old way of thinking. So the Panther project came about, and it was the idea was to renovate it, bring it into modern times. One of the big drivers at that time was engine emissions, and we were moving from tier 3 towards tier 4. So we thought it was the perfect opportunity to give the lineup a facelift. The Panthers were born, but we did a lot of things with the vehicle that made adding equipment to them or doing modifications to vehicles themselves very, very simple. So one of the big things we did was we adopted a truck style chassis, exactly the same dimensions as any big over-the-road trucks, International, Kenworth, Peterbilt, all of those trucks that if you've ever seen a bare chassis of those, the C channels sticking out the back, our vehicles look the very same when there's nothing on them. So we adopted that type of chassis with exactly the idea in mind that it's much easier for people to adopt equipment to go on the back and fit equipment on the back, because every tool that anyone wants to take off road was originally built to go on the back of a truck. That was its first version, or first life, I guess, was to be mounted on trucks. And so we just thought it would be very simple for people to do that. That's what we did. And it's been, in many ways, a bit of a game changer for this industry. People can now install equipment very easily and quickly because they're used to doing it on trucks all the time. There's no special welding to be done. There's no special brackets to be made. There's no holes to be drilled in fairly thick steel in order to pass hoses or electronic wires or these kind of things. So that was a big thing for the vehicle in general. Now, moving on, we've developed over the last number of years an applications group, and these guys will look at and evaluate any project that any customer wants. So if you come to us and you want to put, I don't know, let's say a hydro seeder on the back of one of these things because you do revegetation work after a pipeline has been built. So you can come to us and say, you can give us all the parameters. We want to be able to hold this many gallons of mixture to seed. We need to be able to clean the tank out before we drive back to refill it. We need to have so many acres of autonomy. You give us all the parameters that you need to do your job, and our application engineers will sit down. They'll figure out what you need. They will contact other suppliers that are specialists in that type of equipment, and they will figure out a way to put it on. They'll figure out a way to put it on. They'll figure out a way to hook it up, how to optimize the use of it. And the best example there is that all of these types of equipment comes with its own power pack. So it'll all have a small diesel engine that will run just the hydro seeder or whatever the tool is. And if we take that off and tie it into the engine on the vehicle, the advantages there are you save a lot of weight. So in the case of a hydro seeder, all of a sudden you can go from a 3,000 gallon tank to a 5,000 gallon tank because all the weight of the engine that was with that is gone. You can use it now in mixture. So it gives the vehicle much more autonomy. You get much more work done more quickly, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a very specific example, but our applications engineers figure all that stuff out and can deliver a turnkey package to the customer built exactly to his specs. That's one way of doing it. But also because the vehicles are so easy to work on, there are a lot of, as you well know, there's a lot of very talented people figuring out these problems on their own. And so they'll just buy either a bare vehicle or a vehicle with just a flat deck on it, and they will start to install their own equipment. And even there, we help them out as much as we possibly can, or as much as they want is probably a better way to put it. But we have an installation guide that tells people how to find the center of mass for the vehicle, and depending on the dimensions of whatever they want to put on, how to position it so that it optimizes the center of mass, how to attach it, how to tie in the hydraulics, how to tie in the electronics. So we provide, at the purchase of a vehicle, we provide this type of assistance as well. If they run into a problem, they can call one of the application engineers, and they'll spend, in half an hour on the phone with them, helping them solve their problems, and then away they go again. So we can do both there. It's very simple. And with the truck style chassis, as I said, that was for tracked vehicles, that was a game changer, because we were the only ones that had a true truck style chassis, and we're still the only ones that have a true truck style chassis. Some of the competitors have tried to figure it out a little bit, but so far we're pretty much alone in offering that service to our customers.
I guess that makes perfect sense.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, I guess that makes perfect sense, and it's something I've never thought about. I see these trucks all the time with specialized bodies on them, and it would only make sense that you want to make yours as close to that as possible for the
Right.
ease of it all, and just the wide variety of equipment that's already out there that you could fit to what you have to offer.
And it's been quite successful, because if you look at one, let's say you want to install a 30-ton crane on the back of one of our vehicles. With the old style chassis, it was taking, and we're partners with 2 or 3 OEMs that's their specialty, is aerial devices, cranes, and so on. So with the old style chassis, to install a 30-ton crane, it would take them as much as 3 weeks in their shop to get it up and running, where it doesn't take anywhere that long on a truck. And now with ours, it's not quite as easy as a truck, because you have to deal with tracks. You can't, like, as you can imagine, the space between the wheels isn't open, so it's not so easy for guys to get in and out and work and so on. But the chassis itself is the same, and they've gone from 3 weeks installation time down to 5, 6, 7 days. So they've about cut it in half, which is all money in the end of the day. It's money for them. They get a vehicle ready. If it's going to an end customer, they get paid faster. If it's going into a rental fleet, it can go to work faster and start to make money on its own. So that's a big advantage for them. For any of the OEM partners we have that mount equipment, it's been a big advantage for them, and they appreciate it very much.
So while we're talking about, these vehicles being out in some extreme and far away terrain, as far as like parts and repairs, are, some of these parts, are they custom, if the hose breaks or something like that, or is this something that you could find relatively easily, or that any mechanic for one of these places would have on hand?
That's a good question. Our spare parts business is split in half. There are, because of the uniqueness of the vehicles, especially the chassis, the undercarriage, the cab, most of the parts in those sections of the vehicle are proprietary parts. So we build the wheels and the sprockets and the idlers and the tandems and the cab mounts and what goes into the cab. That is all stuff that we don't build everything ourselves. We have not contractors, but other suppliers build it for us, but they build them specifically to our specs. So those parts are available through us and our partners. You can't really get them anywhere else. But then on the other side, when you start to deal with hydraulics and hydrostatics, that stuff is common everywhere. And as much as we want people to come and buy hydraulic hoses, hydrostatic hoses, valves, all these things from us, if you're in a really tight spot, any hydraulic shop can build you hoses. Any hydraulic shop can redo a valve for you, those kind of things. So your downtime is minimized and you're back up working as fast as possible. The engine itself, all the engines we use are Caterpillar. And as you well know, there's a Caterpillar store on every third corner wherever you go. So if you need filters and those kind of things, those are very easily available. We sell them as well, but people always source that stuff, as you know, as close to to where they are as possible. So, and it's very easy for them to do that. So it's kind of half and half. There's half proprietary parts in there, and there are half parts that you can get wherever you need them, whenever you need them, so that you can minimize your downtime and keep the vehicle working as much as possible.
And that's another question I had too about the engines. I was curious, they obviously must be, I know you build them in Canada and you often sell to the US too. So these equipment must be compatible, or not compatible, I should say, but the equipment must work with the US emission standards. And with the Caterpillar engines, I would imagine it must, right? When you're importing it into the US.
Yes, yes, they do. And emissions are not just a U.S. concern; it's a global concern. And to be honest with you, Europe is always the leader of the band. Europe is even ahead of California, and California is ahead, as you well know, of everywhere else in North America. They always want to be the first to have the cleanest emissions, and they have been doing that for a very long time. But Europe is always a step ahead of them. So if we go back, I don't know, 20 years or so, when what was known as an engine, a diesel engine, that's all there was, and they were all the same, and they all spewed out these huge black puffs of smoke, and that was just the kind of the way it was. And then as air quality became more of a concern for the global population, restrictions were put on these things, and Caterpillar being arguably, maybe not today, but back then they were arguably the largest engine manufacturer in the world. They had no choice but to be able to meet the regulations wherever it was they wanted to sell their products. And that's what started. And so the evolution started from a diesel engine to a tier 2 engine, which was just a higher emission standard, to a tier 3 engine, which was higher still, to a tier 4 and a tier 4 final. And now we're moving on to tier 4 final. Stage 5 is the new thing. And those laws were to be completely enforced in Europe as of January 1st this year, January 1st, 2021. But because of COVID, the European Union pushed everything back a year. So it will become law on January 1st, 2022. Having said that, all the manufacturers started to gear up for January 1st, 21. So stage 5 is in Europe now, and it's being very widely used in Europe. And all the vehicles that we build and are sending to Europe since probably October of last year have tier 4 final stage 5 engines in them. So the cleanest engines that are available right now. It will next, in North America, California will be the first ones to start requiring that, probably by the end of this year as well. So we're ready for them. So we just start sending those vehicles there. But the rest of North America can still use just tier 4 final engines. And so we will keep building until people don't want them anymore, or the laws get to a point where we cannot sell them anymore, and then we'll move forward. So, but in terms of tracked vehicles, we've been on the leading edge all along. Since all of these migrations from one level of emission standard to another started, Prinoth has been the company that's been out front all the time. Good or bad, we've always been out front, and it's been greatly appreciated by our customer base, because as time goes on and the environment becomes more and more front of mind to most people globally, air quality is a big deal. And so when governments or private industry is putting contracts out to bid, more and more emission standards are being stipulated. So people know that if they need tracked vehicles and high emission standards are being requested, they can get that stuff from us, and they don't have to worry about losing business that way.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into these diesel engines, and certainly the emission standards can get really complicated when you start looking at, the US versus Canada, the US versus Europe, and then the individual states or the individual provinces, all have slightly different rules. So it's definitely, I could imagine, a lot to coordinate.
It is. I must admit, going from tier 4 final to tier 4 final stage 5 has been much, much easier than going from tier 3 to tier 4. Tier 3 to tier 4 was a nightmare. Everybody, as you said, Zach, everybody was different. And it could be state to state, province to province, continent to continent. It was a nightmare to manage. We did pretty well. I think we came through quite well, but it was not easy. And but this migration to stage 5 has been much easier because the timing of it seems to be much, I don't know if it's necessarily coordinated globally, but it just maybe luckily the timing of it being installed, it just seems to be following a more logical pattern, and it's easier for a manufacturer to keep up with. So
Was tier 4 where the diesel like the diesel particulate filters and the diesel emission systems were implemented?
that's right. That's where yeah, regeneration units or afterburn units, or there's a whole pile of names for them. That's where it came in between tier 3, which virtually had no way of cleaning what was coming out of the engine before it went into the air, to tier 4, where different manufacturers did it in different ways, but the idea was to get rid of a lot of the carbon, a lot of the carbon monoxide before it went out into the atmosphere. So and that's where the big change happened. Now the change from tier 4 final to stage 5 is they're just refining and improving that process. So and as with any type of technology, the way they do it gets more efficient. It gets smaller, therefore it takes up less room on the engine itself, in the vehicle itself, which makes life a little bit easier for people who use engines to manufacture vehicles. So that's the next step. So the air coming out of a stage 5 is, there's not a whole lot in there when it gets spit out into the atmosphere. There's not very much coming out except hot oxygen or hot carbon dioxide. There's not a whole lot of it. So
Yeah, and that's obviously what we all want as users
exactly.
of the earth and the air that's on it. We all want to be breathing something as clean as possible.
Exactly.
And I know that these emission systems, at least for a little while, it was popular for people to delete, these systems off and take off the diesel particulate filters and the EGR systems, which of course they quickly came back and said, no, you can't do that. It defeats the whole purpose. Because, in the beginning, I think some of them were a little temperamental, but now they're just, they get better all the time. And
Now, as long as they're taken care of properly, like you would take care of any engine properly, they work like a charm. They're virtually maintenance free if you take care of them properly and do what you need to do when you need to do it. Same as anything else. Unfortunately, there are still big parts of the world where you can still use a tier 2 engine or a tier 3 engine. That's still perfectly fine. And even more than fine, in some places, it's necessary because of the quality of fuel they use. They just couldn't, they don't have a high enough quality fuel that would allow it to work properly in a tier 4 or a tier 4 stage 5 engine. They just don't. There's too much humidity, too much dirt, too much water, too much all kinds of stuff. So it would ruin, or the engines just wouldn't run, so no work would get done. But they're slowly being pulled along, and they will get to where we are today at some point in time. No idea when, but they will get there sooner or later.
So we would like to let our listeners know where they can find you if they're interested. And can you speak a little bit about positions, like what's available in the house, and is there a possibility for interns or co-ops for those who are interested?
Yeah, sure. I can maybe take these questions. So first, just regarding interns. So at Prinoth, we have interns every semester, and there's a few schools around where we live. They actually have like structured co-op programs. So we get a lot of interns for various departments, whether it's marketing, engineering, finance, procurement. I mean, we're very open to that. I don't know, because of immigration laws and work permits or what have you, if it would be possible for Americans to come and do an intern with us, but we would certainly be interested in trying. And I was talking to our HR department today, and they were saying, like, yes, as soon as COVID is over, if students from that school think that there would be a fit, we would be super interested in talking to them. So I think that if you, in your not colleagues, but folks at your school are thinking that Prinoth has an interest and they wanted to get more information, I would say that we have we have like, of course, a website and what have you for all that stuff, but we could also just put together like a communication channel between ourselves and try to keep talking in the next, let's say 6 months or whatever. And then let's see what happens. The other thing that we also have is that Prinoth has four actually, US regional distribution centers across the US to service, for parts and maintenance and that kind of thing for servicing our customers. So there's also maybe a solution that could be done where the internships could be done from there if immigration and work laws were not in our favors, for example. So yeah, we're definitely interested. And I was talking about your school's program is really, to me, really different. It's not something I even knew that existed. And I think that we would be really interested in taking a look for sure. Now, you were asking me also where you guys can get some information and stuff. So of course, we have prinoth.com, which is our website where you can get information about our products and applications in which they're used and all that, and find dealers if you're interested. We also have a really great YouTube channel, which we try to populate as much as possible, and Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn that you guys can follow. One thing for you guys to know is most of our channels are called Prinoth and then the products. So snow groomers, tracked vehicles, or vegetation management. So yeah.
Are you on TikTok at all?
Sorry?
Are you on TikTok at all?
No, my daughter is on TikTok. No, we are not on TikTok yet.
We won't be
one thing I might kick in here, if I might, is, as Mary Ellen said, we have interns all the time. And I would think, and this is just my opinion, but I was thinking as an intern, coming to the factory at Prinoth would be a pretty cool place to work. For the simple reason that we have spent, as a company, we've spent a lot of time and energy and effort in the last 3-4 years of modernizing the way we do R&D, the way we do design, the way we do manufacturing. And I've visited a lot of manufacturing facilities of big equipment, all the big names and other big OEMs. And they, by and large, they're very good at what they do, but they do it what I would call the old-fashioned way. And the way we do it is pretty, compared to sort of the standard, I think is very interesting. So I think for someone to come and be immersed in that environment for however long, 3 months, 4 months, whatever an internship would be, it'd be a pretty interesting and fun experience, I would hazard to say. So it's a pretty cool place to spend some time, around in the engineering department, in the R&D department, in the marketing department. It's all open workspaces. People work together. There are little rooms where you can go and huddle up on couches or whatever. It's just a different way of looking at the manufacturing industry that a lot of other big companies don't. So I think it'd be a great place to do an internship if we can ever get people there at some point in time. So.
And I would also add that we have it's a great place. Prinoth's a really great place to work, to be honest. I've been there 5 years myself, and I've worked in other companies before, and it's a really open-minded mentality and relaxed atmosphere, and that's not found everywhere. So that's truly unique, I would say, and special about our company. And I wanted to take the opportunity to open the invitation for real, if you guys are interested in coming and visiting us with your club, organize a bus or what have you when the COVID crisis is behind us. We are super interested in having you guys come, and you guys are the future of our industry. So for sure, we'd love to present to you our factory and everything that we do. It would be super cool, and have you guys test drive a couple Panthers would also be nice.
That would be a lot of fun, for sure.
And just as an extra added bonus, Granby, the town where the factory is reputedly the home of poutine. So if you're familiar with poutine, that's where it was invented. Just down not down the street, but a few
close enough
away from the factory. So that's right. A bonus when you get there.
That honestly sounds like the best trip. Poutine and big toys.
Yeah, and if you guys come in winter, there's a ski hill right across the highway from us, literally 15 minutes from our plant, and they have night skiing, and it's a really super fun place. So the invitation is definitely open.
You're really checking all the boxes here. We got
I know. Eh?
It's gonna be hard to not go.
Yeah, that's it. I've been young before. Trust me, I remember what
So
you
for
like.
those listening, where specifically is your office?
Okay, so it's in Granby, Quebec. So essentially, it's about, I would say probably, I don't know, half an hour from the Vermont border. So it's Highway 91, right, Doug? Or 89? I never remember.
Yeah, 89 if you're coming up through
Yeah.
New Hampshire, and 91 if you're coming up through Vermont. Yeah.
So it's that way, and it's just not far past the border.
From Burlington
Half an
to the
hour.
factory is an hour's drive. From Burlington, Vermont, downtown, from UVM campus basically up is an hour's drive. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so it's definitely doable. It's not I think sometimes people are a little hesitant about going like really far away to, maybe Western Canada, like British Columbia or something, but not that far away really.
No, from
No,
Boston,
exactly.
from Boston to the factory would be a 3.5, 4 hour drive. It's really not that far. You come up straight up through New Hampshire, through the White Mountains there, and then up to the border. And as soon as you get across the border, you head west, and we're not very far from there. So.
Sometimes we get flights out of Boston or out of Manchester because it's cheaper. So it's not far. If you can drive there for a flight, it's not far at all.
I can swing by Adam's house and we can come up now.
Yeah,
There
right.
you go. We'll have to quarantine for 14 days now, so you might want to wait a couple months.
So I think this is just the awkward little ending part. Do you guys have any questions for us?
Just out of personal curiosity, whereabouts is the school in the city? Because I've spent a fair bit of time in Boston, but I can place where the school is.
The Fenway area.
Okay.
It's right over by Northeastern. It's pretty much between Northeastern and Mission Hill.
Okay.
Do you've never been to the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum?
No, I don't think so.
Museum of Fine Arts.
No, there, but I've been by there. I was at Fenway once for a game many years ago, so I know where that is. But yeah,
like a 10-minute walk south.
And we always say that being in Boston is really the perfect location for our school and our major because there's construction happening at all hours.
One thing I would say to you, if you're interested, is on the northeast corner of the city is a company, one of our partners, James Kiley and Associates. He is also a Terex dealer, Terex aerial devices, so cranes and access platforms and those kind of things. And he just about always has some of our vehicles in his yard that they're either upfitting or getting ready to deliver to a customer or whatever the case may be. So that would be a close place for you folks to maybe go and get to kick the tires, so to speak, and have a close look at a vehicle. And if that's of some interest to you, you can let us know either through Mary Ellen, and I will give Jim a call. I talk to Jim on a very regular basis, and I could just kind of do a little introduction there. And I'm sure Jim would be more than happy to have some people over just to look at machines whenever he had them in his yard there. So, and you'll see, the nice thing with him is you won't see any dump boxes or any sort of plain configurations. It's all stuff that has a fairly large tool mounted on the back. So it's quite interesting and it's very close for you. So
yeah, I think I would definitely be interested. I'm sure Adam too, and maybe some other friends. That would be cool.
Yeah. What was the name of the company again?
James Kiley Industries, I believe it's called.
We can send you guys the link if you want.
Yeah.
Through Zach. I have your emails and stuff. So
he's and Jim's a really nice guy. He's got two sons, probably they're both in university, so probably about your age as well. And it's a family-run business, family-owned and operated business. They've been in business for a long time. and they do very good business. He's a very good partner of ours in New England there. So he's a really nice guy. He's a good guy, Jim. So.
That's awesome.
I also have a question. Do you guys ever, you mentioned, Zach, you mentioned that you went to ConExpo last year. There's also the utility show that happens usually it's in October this year. It's in September. It's in Louisville, Kentucky. Do you guys have you guys ever heard of it? And do you guys ever go to that?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
It used to be called IQ.
That's it.
It has a new name. Yeah, has a new name this year. It's every second year, every 2 years in Louisville, and it's always in Louisville. Never goes anywhere else.
I'm only a sophomore. I'm not sure if they've gone in the past. I could ask, but I feel like I probably would have heard of it. I would have heard someone mention it if they went.
Yeah, before, like Doug said, it used to be called the International Construction Utility Exhibit.
Equipment exhibitors.
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
Adam,
awesome.
an extra added bonus for you, Adam. You can visit the Louisville Slugger Factory.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. And that is really cool.
Which is it's a ton of fun to go.
It is. I agree.
Been once. It's just a cool place to go. Yeah.
I'm down for anything baseball.
Yeah, seriously, in my marketing experience, it's the funnest marketing thing I've ever done in my life. Seriously, it is really cool. It's totally worth going.
It's in the original place where it's been for God knows how many years. It's same building there.
And you can't leave without buying a bat. So they've really nailed it down for sure.
Yeah.
Did you personally go to ConExpo, or was it just the company?
Oh no, we were all there.
No, we were all there.
Yeah, we always go. We have a booth and we are, we were there.
We were, I don't know how many we were. We were 14, 16 people.
Yeah, there were less because of COVID. We canceled some. So you're right. We were like 14. Usually we're more around 20, 25, but this year we were.
Was your booth inside or was it outside?
Yeah, we were in Central Hall, very near FAE, actually, if you know FAE, the mulchers. So in I don't know. I don't remember what else was near to us.
Yeah, I was trying to think what else was around us, but
anyway, not in the North Hall where John Deere was, but not far from there.
Yeah, I remember seeing John Deere and of course many others, but
yeah, their boots are always pretty spectacular. All these guys, they have really amazing boots. Well, ours was really nice too, don't get me wrong, but it's not the same size, that's for sure.
I went over to the Volvo booth and I was really hoping to meet the people from Gold Rush, but for whatever reason, they just decided they didn't want to show up on the day that I was there, which I was really bummed.
Oh, that's too bad. But I know that there were some companies, because of the COVID scare, there were lots of companies that were canceling, and there were less people that actually ended up going, but mainly staff. The attendees were there, but there's lots of companies that canceled a lot of their staff at the last minute.
Thank you so much, Marie and Doug, for coming on the show, and we really enjoyed hearing more about Prinoth. And for the listeners out there, I hope you learned something new today and that you enjoyed listening about Prinoth as well. Thank you.